The Overhand Shuffle is probably one of the most used card shuffles after, of course, the Riffle Shuffle that all the cool kids do. But the Overhand Shuffle is also one of the most broken shuffles in card magic that you can practically use for any type of card manipulation. I have been practicing and using this shuffle for over 10 years, and today I'm going to be doing a mini masterclass on deception with the Overhand Shuffle. What up, crew? Hope you're doing well, and welcome to the mini masterclass on card manipulations with the Overhand Shuffle. In this video, I'll be painstakingly breaking down 10 Overhand Shuffle controls in detail. We'll be starting off with the basics and increasing difficulty as the video progresses. I will caution you now, this will not be like most of the other videos on this channel. It will require a lot of practice, and I mean a lot of practice. So I'll be breaking down the techniques of each one of these controls and also providing you with exercises so that you can practice and master these moves. So before we begin, make sure to smash that like button, hit subscribe, bookmark this video if you need to, grab your favorite deck of playing cards, and now, let's do it. Before we break down how to use the Overhand Shuffle for card manipulation, I think it's very important that we talk about the handling, the grip, and the motion of the shuffle itself. So this is what the Overhand Shuffle looks like, just how I like to grip the playing cards. I hold the playing cards in my dominant hand, thumb on the bottom, these 2 to 3 fingers on top, index finger on the long edge, so looking something like this in my dominant hand, and my pinky is just touching the edge of this deck, or the corner of this deck. And what I'm doing is my opposite hand, or my non-dominant hand, will be receiving these cards. So I like to receive the cards like this, 4 fingers in the back, thumb on front, and I'm pretty much tossing these cards from one hand to another. And the motion of the toss looks something like this. So again, I'm holding it like this. I release a small packet of cards with my middle finger, ring finger, and thumb. Release small packet of cards by letting go like so. And you see a small packet of cards come out. Lift this hand up, down again in front of this packet now. Small packet of cards, go there. And your thumb here on the other hand is grabbing these cards. So I let go, thumb grabs, these come up, let go, thumb grabs, these come up, and so on and so forth. And one other thing to note is as you're doing this, the fingers aren't completely aligned like this. You can see here, when I'm doing this, my fingers are aligned like this. They kind of go from up all the way to down. So this is close to straight, as you can see a bit of a curve, and these fingers go along like this, increasing the curvature every time. And the cards are being shuffled onto my index finger. So here, this notch of my finger here, and this part of my palm here. So they're being shuffled onto it like this. And one more time, this is what the motion would look like. So those are the basics of the Overhand Shuffle. Now here is where we're going to cover the basics of the Overhand Shuffle control, where we're just controlling the single card. Because a lot of the times when someone is handing you a playing card or you're doing a card trick, you have it returned right to the top of the deck, so I think this is a great place to start. The first control we'll be looking at is taking the top card and shuffling it to the bottom of the deck. This first control is actually the first control I ever learned, and it's of course controlling the top card to the bottom of the packet. So we're going to get into our grip as discussed in the basics, and what's really going to happen is you're going to be peeling off the top card with your thumb onto your non-dominant hand. And it helps if your thumb has some level of moisture on it. This way the card just doesn't slip off when you're trying to peel. If it has some level of moisture, you press down, slide that card out. One thing to note is in the actual Overhand Shuffle, when you're doing the shuffle, you're releasing the grip with your middle finger, ring finger, and thumb just slightly, allowing some cards to fall down. But in this shuffle, the first time you're doing it, coming over, you're just pulling that single card, and then you're controlling, or then you're continuing with the rest of the shuffle. So coming up to speed, the shuffle should look something like this. The second control we'll be looking at is maintaining the card on the bottom of the deck while the deck is shuffled. This next control actually to me feels even simpler than the other one. Instead of starting with the packet here, I start with the cards here in my hand. So I'm already holding the deck like this, or if you want to start here, then come here, you can do that as well. So you're coming over here and gripping the bottom card, right? The bottom card, we want to maintain that where it is, gripping the bottom card with these 4 fingers. And as you lift up, you'll see the bottom card will stay in position. Again, it helps to have a little bit of moisture on these fingers. You lift that up, you see this card stays in position, and you continue doing the shuffle, maintaining that card right on the bottom. Up to speed, it looks something like this. And the last control we'll be looking at is controlling the bottom card to the top of the deck. Now that you've controlled the card from the top to the bottom, you've maintained that card on the bottom, we want to see how you can control it from the bottom to the top. And personally, I feel like this one requires the most practice out of the other two that I've shown, and let me show you why. So we get into our grip, we start doing the shuffle, and this is going to start off exactly how we always do, doing this level of shuffling. But your thumb is going to be very vital in getting that last card in. So as you're shuffling here, your thumb is kind of feeling to a point where it can no longer pull cards. So as you get closer and closer to this packet here that's getting less and less, you're kind of going to want to feel how many cards are remaining. And this is really just going to come with practice. So I generally know with my thumb here and these fingers how much these are bending when that one single card is left over. But if you're doing this for the first couple of times, you will need to pay close attention on what the feeling of that one card will be. So as you're doing this, make sure to look at your hands as you're shuffling. You want to get to know when you're getting to that last card. And sometimes for me, even now, if I'm doing this very fast or I'm doing this without thinking, sometimes I kind of get stuck on this card and I try peeling and nothing actually peels out, or sometimes this one card just goes into this pile, which does work out. So the one, I guess, glitch you might feel is when you're doing this and you feel like, oh, I'm not shuffling any more cards over, then you can just throw that last card on top and it'll be the ace of spades. And this may feel suspicious to you when you're doing it, but I guarantee you when you're doing this in an actual shuffle, it'll feel completely fine. So that is controlling that card from the bottom to the top. You're not done with this part yet. I'm going to give you a couple of exercises that you can use to hone in your skills with this single card control. So here's how I want you to start off. You want to start off with the card on top of the deck, and if you feel like you're just getting into it and you don't feel super comfortable, you can practice this with the card face up. But eventually you want to get to a point where you can practice with the card face down. But let's just say we're practicing with the card face up. You start with the card on top of the deck, control it to the bottom. Once it's on the bottom, then, by the way, it is on the bottom. Once it's on the bottom, then you want to maintain it, shuffle from there. You can see, maintained on the bottom. And lastly, from here, you want to shuffle it all the way back to the top. And the good thing is, when you're doing this initially, right, when you're practicing this, like I said, the last one is the most difficult. So getting to see that last card, right, so we're coming here, and getting to see where that last card is really gives you a good feel on what a single card feels like in your hand, so it'll be easier to toss over until you get comfortable doing this with the card face down. Here's what practicing should look like up to speed. We have the ace of spades on top, control it to the bottom, maintain it on the bottom, and then bring it up from the bottom to the top. Practice that as many times as you need to until you get it right and it's very comfortable. And if your shuffle looks a little sloppy, that's completely fine because that also factors in on your level of deception when using this shuffle. So this part is where it gets a bit more difficult because now we're going to be controlling the top card and the bottom card. So if you haven't learned part 1 yet, or if you haven't got a good practice in with part 1, this will be a bit difficult since we're going to be building on some of the techniques that we learned from there. But if you're good with that, let's go ahead and get started. The first control consists of moving the top card second from the bottom while maintaining the bottom card. With this control, we're going to build on 2 concepts that we talked about in the previous part. One is shifting this card to the bottom, and the second is maintaining the bottom card. So this is how it's pretty much going to work. You're going to be holding the deck like you normally do when doing the overhand shuffle. You're going to come over, and as you do this shuffle, you're going to take the top card with your thumb, but also take the bottom card with these 4 fingers. So doing it in slow motion, you're pulling both these cards out, and again, helps to have some level of moisture, and continuing doing the shuffle, therefore controlling that card second from the bottom. And up to speed, it looks like this. This next control consists of taking the second from the bottom card and controlling it to the top while maintaining the bottom card. Now this is the next logical move. We move the card from the top to second from the bottom. Now we're going to move it from second from the bottom to the top. And again, it's going to work by peeling off that one single card here on the bottom. We're not going to peel off the top card this time. Peel off that one single card. As you're peeling off, let some of these cards fall. And as you can see, continuing doing this shuffle. And we're going to use the same technique that we used for the previous part on that last control. We're going to keep shuffling until we have 1 card left. Toss that over, and you can see we got our card back to the top. This was second from the bottom. now on the top, and our bottom card stays the same. Up to speed, this is what it looks like. This next control takes the bottom 2 cards and controls them to the top in order. This next control is a bit more difficult because now we're going to be shifting the bottom 2 cards in the same order that they're in, Ace of Hearts on bottom, Ace of Spades on top, to the top of this deck. Now I'm going to show you the real way to do it, and then I'll show you a cheat shortcut, which you obviously don't want to use, but if you really have to, you can. So the way it's going to work, very similar to how we did the last one of the previous part, except now we're going to be holding these 2 cards. So as you're doing the shuffle, the first couple times you're doing it, you really want to focus on how many cards are remaining in your hand. And as you get to the last couple of cards, you may just want to peel one at a time until you can kind of see you have 2 cards remaining and toss those on top, giving you these 2 cards. Now, there is a cheat method of doing this where you, before you start, you can kind of get a break with your thumb right here above these 2 cards. And as you start to shuffle, you want to make sure that you don't tilt this towards the spectator, because obviously now this looks weird. Tilt this towards yourself. The reason I have my index finger on top is because a lot of the times it takes attention away from any break that you have. So you're doing this, you can even push in a little bit with these fingers, and then as you're doing the shuffle, once you get to your break, you know you can toss those 2 cards over, and they come over maintained in order. Doing this up to speed, you see we have these 2 cards on the bottom, and we're going to do our overhand shuffle to get them controlled to the top. This last control takes the top 2 cards and controls them to the bottom in order. Alright, so for this last control, we're going to move these 2 cards to the bottom, maintaining the order. So Ace of Spades will be on top, Ace of Hearts will be on the bottom, so it'll go on the bottom like this. And it's very similar to kind of how we were peeling off the 1 single card, except now we're going to peel off 2 cards. And one more thing I want to mention, if you ever wanted to reverse their order, right, so instead of taking 2, if you want to reverse their order, you can do exactly what we did when we're controlling the top card to the bottom, except now you're peeling 1, 2 cards and doing that shuffle, right? So that reverses their order and they come to the bottom. But we want to focus on how we can maintain their order and push them to the bottom. So we have Ace of Spades on top, Ace of Hearts on the bottom. When we're going to come over and we're tilting this packet here, my thumb immediately comes to the edge of this packet. And as I'm adjusting to get my grip here, I feel out 2 cards with this thumb. And this will require a little bit of practice feeling out how many cards are exactly 2 cards. Because once you have those 2 cards felt out, you can do similarly to what you were doing before, peeling off the card, except now you have to come here to the edge, pull off those 2 cards. Some of these cards may slip, but they're not going to slip all the way down here. Make sure this grip is tight. Pull those 2 cards and continue shuffling right on top of them, and you'll maintain the cards on the bottom in the exact same order. So up to speed, it's going to look something like this. Of course, you're not done with this part yet. We have to go through our practice exercises. So you're going to start with one of the aces on top. So I have the Ace of Spades on top and the other ace on the bottom. And like I mentioned in my previous exercise, you can have both these cards face up if you need to, and if you think that'll help in your practicing process. I think if you're just getting started, it definitely helps to have them face up so you can verify your shuffling, but if not, that's fine too. For our case, I'll do this face up. So here's how I recommend starting. Like I said, 1 ace on top, 1 ace on bottom. You're going to start by getting this card second to the bottom. So do the control, get that second to the bottom. Once it's here, second to the bottom, now you want to practice doing the control where you bring those 2 cards up to the top, again without changing their order. There you have them now on top. Then you're going to do the shuffle where you're controlling these 2 cards to the bottom. Here we have those 2 cards on the bottom. And now lastly, you're going to do the control where you bring the original top ace back up to the top while maintaining the bottom card. And as you can see, this ace is here and this ace is on the bottom. Practicing is going to be key on this one, even more than the last one. In this last part, we're going to be focusing on packet controls. So we're going to be controlling the top packet, the bottom packet, and both the top and bottom packets. So with that being said, let's do this. For the first control, we'll be taking the 4 aces and shuffling them into the deck. And after the overhand shuffle is complete, the 4 aces will end up right back on top. Okay, here we go with the first one. So this technique I actually learned way back in the Royal Road to Card Magic, and I've been using it ever since. I absolutely love it. We're going to be starting with the 4 aces on top of the deck. Of course, you don't have to be the 4 aces. And it could be any packet size that you want. I'd recommend no more than 10 cards, otherwise it does get a bit weird. But we have a packet of cards, let's say 4 aces on top of this deck. Now we're going to come into our position, and we're going to throw over a packet of cards. And the first packet that you're throwing over, that is the packet that you're going to be maintaining. Okay, so that's one thing to keep in mind. So that's why I'm saying you don't want a large packet, like half the deck, otherwise it's weird that you're throwing that many cards over. So you want to throw over a small packet of cards, like I did right here, just a small packet. And once these cards have been thrown over, you're going to use your thumb now to push back and in-jog these cards. So you're pushing them back so you can get a break when the time comes. So you toss those over, push back with your thumb, and continue shuffling the cards on top of the rest of these cards. Now, unlike the other shuffles, this will require 2 overhand shuffles, because the first time you're losing it in the center of the deck. The second time you're going to come over with your thumb, push it down, and you're going to push forward so that you maintain, or you get a break between the original top packet and the rest of the cards. And now when you get into this grip, again, keep in mind you're going to have a break here. You don't want this being shown to the spectator. Keep it lean towards you, and again, that's why I have my index finger on top. I start shuffling over these cards, and as I'm shuffling over, once I get to my break, I'll immediately know when I'm getting to my break or when I'm at my break. The cards won't fall as easily because the thumb moving won't have, anything to do with anything, since this is now on the bottom half where the thumb isn't really moving. And it's like this, and you come to this packet, throw this right on top, and you'll see the 4 aces have been maintained. One thing I want to mention, and you should take note of, is how big the in-jog is. So as I come here, right, and I do this, I don't want to go all the way down here. That just seems insane. You want to be comfortable to a point where this shuffle can hide this fleshy part of your palm and your thumb can hide this packet here, but it should still be comfortable enough that you can come over and get that break and continue doing the shuffle. So that will require a good amount of practice on your end, because you want to know exactly what's comfortable for you and what would hide that break that you're making. So it definitely will require a lot of practice. And this is how the control looks up to speed. Again, we have the 4 aces on top. Gonna give the deck a shuffle. Obviously, this is a real shuffle. Everyone knows that. And you'll see the 4 cards, or the 4 aces, are maintained on top. For the second control, we're going to start with the 4 aces on the bottom of the deck, and after giving the deck a shuffle, the 4 aces will be maintained on the bottom. This next method of maintaining cards on the bottom of the deck through a shuffle is a method that I came up on my own. I just wanted to see how I can maintain those bottom cards without doing what other people are doing. So we'll start with the 4 aces now on the bottom of the packet, and we're going to be doing the same overhand shuffle. So as we're doing this overhand shuffle, we're going to continue going until you feel like this is the packet you want to maintain. And like I said before, the packet that you're keeping here is the packet that's going to be maintained on the bottom. So this last packet that you're keeping here is the packet that'll be maintained on the bottom of the deck. And now instead of throwing it back here, I actually throw it a bit further up like this. So you can see it's a bit further up. And as I come in for my second shuffle, I lift up with my middle finger and ring finger. This gets lifted up. These playing cards here get pushed forward with my thumb, aligning it like this. And now I allow these cards to fall, and I continue doing the overhand shuffle, maintaining those 4 cards on the bottom. And similar to what I talked about when we were maintaining the top packet, you want to make sure when you're doing the shuffle, you don't throw them cards forward way too much. Like, this is insane. Like, no one would throw them that far. The whole purpose of having a sloppy shuffle is that if the cards are misaligned a little bit here, or like I was showing before, the cards are down here on the bottom, that looks completely fine. If you're very clean with your shuffle and you can clearly tell there's a difference between like this packet and this packet, that's when there's a problem. So that's why you want to make sure that the things are fairly clean, and you don't want to go all the way out here, because that just seems way horrible, if that's the right way to say it. So just know how far you're putting the packet out based on 2 factors. One is how cleanly you can come here with your middle finger and ring finger, and how messed up the rest of the deck is. Because if the rest of the deck is not messed up at all, and if it's just a clean break, then that's weird. But if the cards are, kind of mismatched, something like, this is not even enough, but something like this, then when you come here and do it, it looks completely natural. And there's your second bottom packet controlled. And one more time, up to speed, we have the 4 cards on the bottom. We start doing our shuffle, throw them a bit further forward, grab everything back up, continue doing the shuffle, and the 4 aces are maintained on the bottom. For this last control, we'll be maintaining the top packet and the bottom packet. So I have 2 aces on top, 2 aces on the bottom, and after the deck has been shuffled, the 2 aces on top and bottom are maintained. This is where it gets a lot more interesting because we're going to be combining what we did in this part, controlling the top packet and controlling the bottom packet. We're going to start with the 2 black aces on top, 2 red aces on the bottom, and let's slowly walk through how this is done. So similarly to how we're controlling the top packet, throw those over, push back here, do a couple of shuffles, oops, sorry about that, until you know the bottom packet that you want, come here and push that a little bit forward. So as you can see, since it's a bit messy, it doesn't look like I have 3 different parts broken up here. But what I'm gonna do now is here, I'm gonna come like this. I approach like this for my second shuffle as I'm cleaning everything up. Push down and forward on the bottom over here, push up here, and you can see it'll break into 3 packets. You're gonna let the bottom packet, this is the original bottom packet, fall down. This packet, you're gonna shuffle up a little bit here, and once you get to the top packet, you throw that back up on top, maintaining the 2 black aces on top and the 2 red aces on the bottom. I'm gonna tell you right now, this will require a lot of practice, because if you don't have the first packet move down, you're gonna mess up on that. And if you don't have the second packet move where you maintain the bottom half or bottom packet, you're gonna mess that up as well. So you need both of them to work. So before doing this, practice the first part, practice the second part, and put those 2 together, and then you can focus on this part of this part. One tip that I would say really helped me was focusing on the technique before speeding up. So I practiced throwing the cards over, sliding those back, doing a bit of shuffles slowly as needed, pushing that a bit front. Again, see about the alignment, right? Because now we're going back here and up there. You want to make sure everything looks messy and it doesn't look like it's cleanly cut between 3 packets. When you come square everything up, make sure this falls. Make sure cards don't fall from like in the middle here. That used to be a problem for me. Continue shuffling all these over until you get to the break. Throw the rest over, and you'll see everything is maintained. And now up to speed, it's going to look something like this. Alright my friends, so now it's time for the practice exercises. I'd recommend starting off practicing the first shuffle with the card face up, because this way you'll know exactly what's going on. When you throw over that packet of cards, push this back, and as you're doing the shuffle, you'll never lose where this card is, because I know when I started, sometimes I forgot, like, oh, is it, when the cards are all face down, is it this card? Is it like the card that's sticking out a little bit more on top of that? What card is it? So you want to probably start with the cards face up, and once you get comfortable with this, know exactly where it is, then you can start doing the practicing with the cards face down. So that's how I'd recommend practicing the first one. The second one, honestly, there's no method to the madness. Just remember whatever the bottom card is, King of Clubs in our case. When you're doing the shuffling here, toss those cards over up front. You want to make sure, if you want to do a check while you're doing your shuffle, just to make sure here you're pushing up the right cards. Toss that over and continue doing the shuffle. There's nothing really special that you can do because there's no like top face-up card that you can use for reference, since this bottom packet size always changes. So the best way to practice is just by practicing. And of course, for this last one, throw those techniques together. Practice nice and slow. Make sure to practice each one before you start off with the other one. Make sure you don't flip cards over like I do, but even if you do, that's completely fine. It shows that you're human and your shuffling is messy, but you'll still maintain the cards on top and bottom. Always remember, the key to master any move or technique is to practice. And as shown at the end of each part, do go through those exercises so that you can pretty much do these moves without even thinking about it. It should just be a setting that you flip on and your hands start executing. Once you get close to mastering these, I would highly encourage you to join the Underground Club, aka my Patreon, to get the most out of your learning and practicing during a one-on-one session with me. And trust me, if you want to hone in on your skills, you'll definitely get a lot out of it. Thanks so much for watching. If you want to see more mini masterclass videos like this, do let me know down in the comments below, because it does take me a lot of time to put these videos together. And if you guys are enjoying it, then it'll be worth it. Otherwise, why am I even here? It was a pleasure having you here, and I hope to see you at the Underground Club.